As Israel's ground invasion against Hamas advances, Israeli forces have encircled Gaza City, cutting off the densely populated area from southern Gaza. Though hundreds of thousands of Palestinians evacuated northern Gaza ahead of the invasion, nearly 400,000 people remain trapped there. Hamas has reportedly positioned itself within and below civilian infrastructure, and Israeli strikes on civilian locations like the Jabalia refugee camp have caused massive collateral damage. Israel has so far rejected calls for periodic humanitarian pauses but agreed to allow 100 aid trucks to enter the territory daily. Meanwhile, the United States is engaging in shuttle diplomacy amid simmering regional tensions. Israel continues to exchange rocket fire with Hezbollah in Lebanon and strike alleged Iran-linked targets in Syria. Iran-backed groups have launched dozens of attacks on U.S. military positions in Iraq and Syria, and Yemen's Houthi rebels entered the fray by launching missiles at Israel. Israeli-Palestinian conflict history. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict dates back to the end of the 19th century. The origins of the Israel-Palestine conflict can be traced back to the late 19th century when Jewish immigration to Palestine, then part of the Ottoman Empire, began to increase. Zionist ideology, which aimed to establish a Jewish homeland, gained momentum during this period. After World War I, the League of Nations granted Britain the mandate to govern Palestine, and Jewish immigration continued, leading to tensions between Jewish and Arab communities. In 1947, the United Nations proposed the partition of Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem as an international city. The plan was accepted by the Jewish leadership but rejected by the Arab states. In May 1948, the State of Israel was declared, leading to the First Arab-Israeli War. This event marked the beginning of the Israel-Palestine conflict as we know it today. The First Arab-Israeli War, also known as the War of Independence, resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian Arabs and set the stage for future conflicts. Armistice agreements were signed in 1949, with Israel securing its territory and Palestine remaining divided. In 1967, the Six-Day War saw Israel gaining control of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, and the Golan Heights. This conquest increased the complexity of the conflict, as Israel's occupation of these territories significantly altered the geopolitical landscape of the region. The United Nations passed Resolution 242, calling for Israel's withdrawal from these territories in exchange for peace and recognition from its Arab neighbors. In June 1967, following a series of maneuvers by Egyptian President Abdel Gamal Nasser, Israel preemptively attacked Egyptian and Syrian air forces, starting the Six-Day War. After the war, Israel gained territorial control over the Sinai Peninsula and Gaza Strip from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. 6 years later, in what is referred to as the Yom Kippur War or the October War, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise two-front attack on Israel to regain their lost territory. The conflict did not result in significant gains for Egypt, Israel, or Syria, but Egyptian President Anwar al-Sadat declared the war a victory for Egypt as it allowed Egypt and Syria to negotiate over previously ceded territory. Finally, in 1979, following a series of ceasefires and peace negotiations, representatives from Egypt and Israel signed the Camp David Accords, a peace treaty that ended the 30-year conflict between Egypt and Israel. Even though the Camp David Accords improved relations between Israel and its neighbors, the question of Palestinian self-determination and self-governance remained unresolved. In 1987, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians living in the West Bank and Gaza Strip rose up against the Israeli government in what is known as the First Intifada. The 1993 Oslo I Accords mediated the conflict, setting up a framework for the Palestinians to govern themselves in the West Bank and Gaza, and enabled mutual recognition between the newly established Palestinian Authority and Israel's government. In 1995, the Oslo II Accords expanded on the first agreement, adding provisions that mandated the complete withdrawal of Israel from 6 cities and 450 towns in the West Bank. In 2000, the Second Intifada began due to various factors, including Palestinian grievances, a stalled peace process, and Ariel Sharon's visit to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This led to the construction of a barrier wall around the West Bank in 2002, despite opposition from international courts. Factionalism intensified with Hamas winning Palestinian Authority elections in 2006, leading to control of the Gaza Strip. The US and EU did not acknowledge this due to Hamas terrorist designation. Violence between Hamas and Fatah ensued until they formed a unity government in 2014. Conflict continued, including the 2014 Israel-Hamas confrontation and protests in 2018. This political tension resulted in disunity between Fatah and Hamas, with Fatah controlling the West Bank and Hamas in Gaza. In May 2018, fighting broke out again. The Trump administration prioritized an Israeli-Palestinian deal, making controversial decisions. The UAE and Bahrain normalized relations with Israel in 2020, known as the Abraham Accords, which were rejected by Palestinian leaders. The most far-right and religious government in Israel's history was inaugurated in late December 2022. In 2022 and the first 9 months of 2023, there was a renewed level of violence between Israelis and Palestinians. This period saw a steady trend of clashes in the West Bank, including daily Israeli incursions. Israel approved the construction of 5,000 new settler homes in June 2023, which is considered illegal under international law, along with other settlements in Palestinian territory. The Israeli military also escalated its operations, conducting raids on the Al-Aqsa Mosque, an operation in Ramallah that wounded 35 people, and firing missiles from a helicopter at the Jenin refugee camp. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button below and subscribe. See you in the next video.